She built a life teaching yoga, traveling the country, and helping people improve their health and well-being. Then one day, everything changed in an instant, and she found herself alone on a mountainside, facing a moment that would completely transform how she saw life, loss, and what it really means to experience a miracle. Today's story is about resilience, unexpected healing, and lessons that can only come from the hardest moments in life. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life health transformational coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to empower coaches and entrepreneurs to amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible. If you're ready to start attracting premium clients without chasing algorithms or hunting people down like a banshee on a mission, head on over to coachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. It's the first step to building a business where your clients seek you out rather than you having to hunt them down. Today, we are chatting with Kym Coco. Kym is an author, nature-loving yogi, and a wellness educator with a master's degree in sports kinesiology and two 5-hour yoga training certifications. She taught at California State University, Chico, and led workshops around the country with her late husband. Today, she shares tools for well-being through her book, Miracle on the Mountainside, and her blog, swagtail.com, while spending time between the Sierra Nevada mountains and traveling in her Sprinter van in search of scenic vistas and great golf courses. Welcome to the show, Kym. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Jill. Thank you so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here with you and your listeners to talk about resilience and confidence and wholehearted living today.
I love that. So let me ask you the big question, which is what's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals, we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
As you ask that question, I have to laugh at a story from Miracle on the Mountainside. This is not planned, but this is what comes to mind first and foremost. My late husband, Steve, officiated lots of weddings, and he was in Chicago with 150 people with two very astute professionals who and a bride who had every detail of the wedding planned to the second, every word, every detail. And almost ready to pronounce them husband and wife, Steve had a blinding flash of the obvious. Their marriage is going to have a challenge if they are unable to say these things. You were right, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And he actually threw that into the wedding ceremony to the bride and groom's shock. And everyone in the audience giggled because they knew these people. They laughed knowing that we have this sense of arrogance and confidence and bravado. And it's within us all. It's a lot harder to say, you were right, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I believe if we do that, we can create a greater sense of connection and love between us in this world we're co-creating.
Oh, I could not agree more. Owning the fact that somebody else could be right. You don't have to own everything.
It's hard enough to say, I don't know, but then to acknowledge that, wow, maybe I don't know and you do. We can all take a slice of humble pie every once in a while. Or a heaping whole pie, why not?
And even more importantly, just you could both be right, but you can explore other people's ideas too. You can be curious. Being curious is like way more important than being right. Let's see where your result goes. I'm pretty sure I know where mine's going to go. Let's have an experience that's different. It's
I,
okay.
I agree completely. That idea of going into the unknown can be really scary, and yet that's where the adventure is. That's where our soul thrives, and that's where we have the most fun, and we get to grow and evolve. And that's really the juiciness of life.
It so is. So few times in life when things go right do I learn anything. It's when they go wrong. They always say the message is your message or whatever. I guess it's true. Because that's where the crucible is. It's where all of the juicy stuff comes out. And it's probably not going to look anything like you intended it to look, but it's okay. It's going to look like something different. We
I
like
think we
different.
often confuse this idea of confidence with perfection. That ability to learn and make mistakes and fail and rewire and revisit and practice again and refine. That's what really helps us build the confidence we're often seeking and the skills that help us have the sure-footedness as we step into our different life experiences. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it would be downright impossible if we started at ground zero and expected it to be so.
Yeah, that's the whole process of learning. Let's talk about labels a little bit too, because I think labels come in here a lot. We label ourselves, other people label us, we accept labels, and labels can really change your life.
What do you want to talk about specifically with labels?
How labels, when we label ourselves as something like, I'm just a little, I've created a little something, or I'm just a mom, wife, secretary, whatever you are. It's just a label that we put on ourselves, a student, a kid, uh, a drug addict, an alcoholic, somebody who drinks too much, somebody who's sick, somebody who has cancer. I mean, all of these things are labels that get bantied about very casually, but they're all charged. All labels are charged, and we can either accept them into ourselves and they become part of our identity, or we can accept a different approach to labeling and make our own labels.
What if we consider those labels like the clothing we're going to select for the day? They
Yeah, I
change
like that.
so frequently. And if we get so attached to those labels, when they inevitably change, and they do, it can be disorienting. And
Hmm.
I mean, imagine walking out naked. It could be a little shocking to you or others. So let's take this idea of labels. You mentioned they're charged. You also put some words in, I'm just a mom or just a student. We could diminish the roles we play by the words we use and the emotions
Yeah.
we feel around those labels. Or we can supercharge them. I'm a confidence speaker. I love getting out and teaching. I'm an amazing golfer. I'm an amazing coach. And regardless of the emotional energy you put with it, the roles are going to change. Maybe that's by choice. And maybe that, say, in my case, my husband dying, that was something we knew was going to happen. And yet, those roles, all of those identities I played in that space of my life shifted. It's wonderful to acknowledge that these labels, if we can step back, take away the charge, positive or negative, and consider them like the clothing again, you have to take off the old clothes before you put on the new ones. And I think we often overlook that deconstruction phase of labels, that stripping away, and we want to put something on right away because that makes us feel more comfortable. We have a sense of who we are in the world. And yet, at that core of who we are, it's labelless. It's bigger than any label. It's broader. It's more infinite, this consciousness that we have. And so I invite all of us, I do this too as a practice, to rest in that space where the labels aren't there, where you can pause and before you put on the next label, whether that's a myriad of roles you're playing throughout the day, pausing between each of those different segments, and in those larger chunks of life where an old set of labels might not fit anymore, can you rest in the space where new labels might not be there and be okay with that?
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And just like 30 seconds between changing rules, conversations you have, how that impacts how you approach the next interaction you're having with someone.
It's something as simple as being at your office and you're having a conversation with one colleague and another colleague walks in. Well, that's an entirely new segment. Now you're not just one on one. That subtle of a dynamic. I mean, it could be a very big dynamic depending on who walks in the room. And yet you shift slightly and how you interact is different. And if we can acknowledge that on a more moment by moment basis, then we get to include more of the whole of who we are. I think that holistic living that I keep wanting to make this bigger if you're watching, or it's just I keep moving past my skin because the whole of us is so big. Our capacity is greater than we often acknowledge. And the more we moment by moment approach that wholeness, I think it improves our connection, it improves our communication, it improves the clarity we have within ourselves as we interact with those others.
Yeah, and it's so important because the conversations we have reinforce our thoughts about ourselves, which is really what the labeling is all about. It's how we think of ourselves in the world and how what we're projecting out into the world. And the more that we can develop confidence about who we are internally, it's really the easier it is to interact with other people and make the space around you much better.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I keep thinking, well, labels aren't good or bad. It's how we're interpreting them.
Mhm,
If we get so attached to them that once they're gone, we lose our sense of identity and direction as a whole, that could be problematic.
mhm.
The identities really do help give us some kind of framework, an operating system, a way in which to move forward. And that can be very beneficial. As I'm thinking of the quote, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up somewhere else. And it is nice to know where you're going and have a means in which to travel that serves you.
Mhm. But you wrote your book, A Miracle on the Mountainside, which is a really powerful title, by the way. What inspired you to write the book? Can you tell us a story about being on the mountainside?
Well, actually, this it is twofold. The first is that before I met Steve, my late husband, he had a motorcycle accident. He was driving up Highway 70 here in Northern California. He hit shale on his bike. It went sliding 40 feet, and he thought, oh, I can jump the guardrail before the bike hits. And he jumps over, only it's not a soft landing. Now it's a cliff. And he laid there on the side of the mountain, calling out to God, am I worthy to be saved? Based on his belief system at the time, he wasn't sure. And this idea of surrendering into, I've done my best in life, I can do no more, I let go. And he had a near death experience, had a miracle rescue, and after the miracle rescue, recovered with 28 reconstructive surgeries, 3 years in a hospital bed, 3 more to learn how to walk, and a complete life transformation to the point where he recognized it's important to be part of my healing journey. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to save me or fix me. I have a great amount of autonomy in this process. That we are bigger than our spiritual selves. We are bigger than our this physical body. We have this spiritual element. That's what I meant to say. And this idea that it doesn't have to be perfect. Even though we have this wisdom and we have this direct connection to a power that's so much bigger than us, we still get the opportunity to channel that back in really detailed ways in our human self. He dedicated the rest of his life to teaching that. He was teaching emotional kinesiology. I was teaching sports kinesiology. That's how we met. And when we knew his time was limited here on Earth, I knew we started doing these recordings, audio recordings, and I promised him I would write the book. So Miracle on the Mountainside is the first element is it's his short stories of all these different life lessons through looking back at your life through forgiveness, understanding other people, recognizing the value we all have in our diversity, and stepping more into the power we have right here, right now to direct our lives. And I like to say, I didn't want to be like Steve. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go over a cliff to understand these lessons.
Right?
And so the miracle for me is getting to understand, getting to embody these principles. So even once he was gone, the resilience to say, I choose love. Pain can happen in a lot of different ways. If we're going to go back to this idea of labels, we have really wonderful labels we get to wear, hats and roles we play. And when that avenue of love, let's say in a relationship, disappears, it can be easy to want to shrink back and hide and forget that there are other incredible people out there with which we still get to play. And so I am so thankful for the opportunity not just to be able to write this book, not only get to enhance my own ability to write, but reinforce that the miracle that we want in life, the miracles, the joy, this increased capacity, the vivaciousness, it's not outside of us. It's inside of us. And we get to choose that at any moment. We get to flow love in so many different ways. And I'm really appreciative for not only getting to see his story, but live through the depths of loss and walk out the other side choosing love.
Such a beautiful story. And it's so powerful in that bad things happen in life, things that we don't choose to have happen. And when the death of a loved one happens, it can be devastating for some people. But we do all have a choice to move through it, to take those lessons. And I personally don't believe those people are gone, gone. I don't know what his near-death experience was, but I think they're just in a different dimension. They're still here, and I actually believe they come back. So,
I like this. The same idea resonates with me too. And he understood that. He got to step into the bigness of all that is and go, "Oh, wow, this is incredible. How can I take this amount of bliss, of love, of joy back into my life?" And we have that same opportunity. And in fact, I was writing his book thinking, I'm here. I can choose to focus on missing him. Or as I looked outside the window, outside of my van, at the beautiful Pacific Ocean, seeing the sparkles, hearing the sea lions, watching the seagulls fly overhead, could smell the salty air, and not just appreciate having that sensational capacity as a human, but also hear his voice saying, "Look for me where I am. I'm in the light. I'm in this color. I'm here with you." And now we get to communicate in a different way. It might be more subtle than you and I having this conversation,
mhm.
and yet it's still very much available to us.
And I think that they do still like interact with us in ways, but it's subtle. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's not so subtle. It's like my late father-in-law used to accuse his brother, one of his brothers, of hiding stuff from him. And, who knows? Maybe he was.
It's so funny.
And we can do so much with the experiences that we did get to have with them, and bring that value into life and the the material realm that we experience from day to day. I think we're headed towards a time when it's going to be that veil is thinning. I-
Completely. It's wonderful to see how frequently we talk about meditation, a practice about the pause, stepping back from those identities, tapping into this infinite universe and understanding that we are part of the whole. We're a drop in the sea of spirituality. The information is out there. We're having these kinds of conversations. And I think the more we recognize that the shiny objects many times in this material world don't satisfy that soul calling within us, we're still out there wanting those meaningful connections. And it's really fun to see how that opens the doorway for accessing all of these different dimensions. And the invitation's always there. We get to decide when we step into it.
yeah, we have so much power, and it's easy to get distracted by this world and the shiny things. But if you can just push back a little bit, if it's 5 minutes of meditation or just sitting calmly and appreciating, and and we're more and more, I think people are moving into a more minimalistic experience in life. It's just like stuff doesn't hold the value that it used to hold. And I think it's kind of a beautiful thing. I do want to ask you about his after his near-death experience, because personally I'm very curious.
Yes.
Can you share with us about that, or is it too
Oh,
personal? Is it?
completely. No, it's actually in the opening chapter of the book, which
Oh,
are anyone listening can go listen to the audio chapter. It's an audiobook, it's beautiful, or read it if you prefer reading it.
mhm,
And he remembers saying, "Okay, I surrender," that feeling of letting go.
mhm,
We get exhausted trying. So he said, "Okay, I'm good. I've made peace with what I've done, who I am." And boop, steps outside of his body and is sitting on a rock. And he watches the paramedics working on him and has a sense of understanding the physical while being completely free of pain, free of shame, free of doubt, a sense of peace that was so overwhelming that even though he didn't at the time recognize where he was, he knew he didn't need to leave. Everything was perfect as it was. And he recalled looking through a book and his own handwriting that went through his life. And he could see the times where he was on his path and felt in alignment, felt that whole self in motion. And then those moments where there were blank places and maybe he had deviated or taken a different journey, and areas where he wanted to look back and say, well, I could have handled that differently. Maybe I would have said something differently or taken a different route. And yet, no blame or criticism in all that, just a sense of understanding and appreciating it as learning.
so
And I'll
beautiful.
give you one other story with that, Jill. So he decided he had a moment of I want to come back. He had a son at the time that he had just gained custody over at 11 years old. He knew he wanted to come back for his son. And he didn't, in that decision making moment, understand the magnitude of what it would take to heal physically. But it didn't matter because the understanding of his capacity, of our capacity as spiritual beings, was a given. And he could take that confidence into whatever the healing journey looked like. But as he was in the hospital a few days later, they were going to remove his leg.
Mhm.
And he was there on the operating table and he could hear the doctors talking. And that's when he said he left his body again. And this time he was hovering above his body, looking down, but he could hear everything in the room. And he said, "Hey, I thought I was going to come back." And sure enough, he went right back into his body and he told the nurse, "I want a second opinion. Get Dr. Azevedo. He is the best. I don't want them to remove my leg." Well, sure enough, a couple days later, the nurse comes into his his intensive care room and says, "Steve, I'm not sure you remember me, but I was there when you were going into surgery. And do you remember telling me you wanted a second opinion?" And he said, "Yes, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it." Because he could see his leg in the bandage and he knew Dr. Azevedo was coming. Well, she said, "You could not have verbally spoken to me because you had tubes down your nose and down your throat, but I heard you with my heart and I followed the impulse."
Oh,
And so, this idea that we communicate with more than just our words or our body language. Our ideas matter, our consciousness, our energy matters. And that conversation that she heard or that they had in the ethers, it was wonderful. He kept his leg and he was able to walk again, play golf again, do a lot of things the rest of his life because of that moment.
wow. We are such powerful beings. And so many of us go through life and it's just like, blah, 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 whatever.
Living in the margin. Let's live in the
Yes,
whole.
yes. We really do have all the power to change the world.
We do. And I think it can be enticing to want to make these really big, grandiose changes. The steps are small, they are powerful. Let's not overlook these incremental moments of saying, "You were right, I was wrong, I'm sorry," of showing up, of being completely present, of inviting the whole of us to be in the moment, of taking those pauses, of appreciating the beauty around us. We have these tools, we have access, and it's often not glamorous necessarily or even noticeable by other people, but they matter. They matter in the big picture.
I like to say that everybody breathe or everybody takes in air, but few truly breathe. It, breathing can be automatic or it can be intentional. Life can be automatic or it can be intentional. You get to choose. And it doesn't have to always be the same. I mean, I know there's days when it's just like, I'm taking in air. It's the best I could do today. But you don't have
Yeah.
to live in that.
Yes, and life does happen. There are events that are unexpected. That's where we get to utilize different tools like breathing on purpose, like calming down the nervous system, like taking those pauses. I think I laugh just the idea of just a visceral trauma. We have the somatic nervous system that ramps up. It helps us stay alive. The alarm bells are ringing for a reason. Thank that part of your system. We don't want to control it or micromanage it. Let it happen. Shake off the trauma. Let the emotions go through your system. And then we get to go back to living and learning. And I think building a different capacity to use a variety of tools because every situation is different. And some are more immediate, some are long term. Breathing, as you mentioned, is, I think, one of the best ways to come back to the moment, to be really intentional, and to step into the agency that really is ours.
Hmm. I, like I said, it's one of those, we all do it, but if you know the secret codes, you can do it much more effectively and get get different responses from your body. And so it affects the way you think. Like one of the most interesting things I discovered about breathing was if we breathe through one nostril at a time, most people don't realize that it switches off. But if you want to control your thoughts, plug one side of your nose or the other. And I forget which way it goes, but one side is emotional and one side's logical in your brain. And depending on which side of your nostril it goes crossways, it affects that side. So if you think you're going to cry, you press one side of your nose or the other. I can't remember which side it is. And it will push you more into the logical side of your brain, and that emotion will subside.
Jill, can I share something that I just was recently made aware of in a new way?
Hmm.
So, Jill Bolte Taylor, she did an amazing TED talk years ago on she had a stroke of insight, literally a stroke at age 37 as a neuroanatomist at Harvard. So she understood the brain completely and watched her shut down in real time.
Hmm.
Fascinating. Again, I don't think we need to go through these traumas to embrace our power, and yet they can be powerful lessons. And people like her with a very detailed vocabulary on the brain can help us understand ourselves better.
Hmm.
So she would say, and her book is wonderful, it's called Whole Brain Living, actually. We have the left brain, logical, linear, competitive, helps us move forward in time, reach our goals. That temporal element's very important. And yet on the left side of the brain, also, we have an emotional element. So the left brain does help us set the alarm bells, look at fear and say, wait, pay attention. I'm scared. There's something going on. So that left side emotional brain really does get activated when we're uncertain or there is a sense of immediate danger. But
Hmm.
we often think of the right brain as more that emotional side, which the right brain does have the emotional element. And that's the free spirited, frisky, present, engaged in the moment, very alive in the see it, hear it, feel it, taste it, smell it world. So that
Hmm.
emotional sense, which we often think is the right side, is there. And then we also have the right side of the brain that says, okay, hey, we are part of this whole. I and you and me, all of us listening are connected. All of the things around us, this energy, we're all interconnected. So if I was to go back to your breathing analogy, I highly recommend taking time to go breathe through both sides of the nostril, both nostrils one at a time, because that can affect the emotional centers in both the right and left hemispheres. Great
And
techniques.
Yeah, there are actual breathing techniques to do that.
Yes, yes, I highly recommend
Patterns.
do it one at a time. Alternate nostril breathing is wonderful. It's such
Hmm.
a great tool to quickly to a more centered state.
Hmm. Yeah. I, something you already have. Most of us have a hand
We have a
and a
hand, we're going to
nose.
breathe anyway. Why not do it on purpose?
Exactly, exactly. I know you have a program called the Brilliant Becoming, which is a monthly workshop that walks students through techniques to remove mental emotional blocks, increase alignment, and move towards their intention with greater alignment. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. First, let me explain why I named it this. I believe we're brilliant, and I believe we're constantly becoming. We are evolving and changing.
Mhm.
How do we bridge that gap? And the mental emotional tools that help us find alignment, that help us use the whole brain I was just talking about, that help us
Yep.
understand our emotions and utilize them to our advantage instead of feeling like a victim to them, which sometimes they're so powerful that can be easy to feel like. It can feel so overwhelming. So we go through those tools, a variety of practices, so that you can understand yourself better, approach life with a sense of composure. When those unexpected situations happen that might knock you out of balance, you have the capacity and resilience to find your centered state much more quickly, and then a clear mind and a broader picture in which to step forward once again. So the information is out there. There are so many great resources. Swagtail.com has a lot of articles that start to talk about these things. And yet it's the practice. It's walking through these exercises. It's wanting that real-time feedback. Am I doing it right? In what capacity is where are the best arenas to do this in? How can I integrate this into my life without maybe looking like a freak walking around, with my fingers on my nose and breathing? How do we do this in the best way possible? I mean, you still could. It's great. Who cares? It doesn't matter what other people think. It's just nice to know we have tools. Let's learn them together. Let's practice them and get you living in your best, biggest, brilliant self.
Oh, I love that. And they can find your book at swagtail.com as well.
Yes. Swagtail's the hub. All the books are there. You can listen or read the first chapter of Miracle on the Mountainside and find a lot of fun resources as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kym. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks for having me, Jill. I greatly appreciate you.
You can learn more about Kym and her Brilliant Becoming program by visiting swagtail.com, and we'll put the links in the description below. Thank you for joining us today. If you're ready to amplify your voice, monetize your mission, and start attracting premium clients, head on over to thecoachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. Join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.